Hello, my name is Marley and I'm a fourth year student on BA Psychology at Richmond American University London.
Hello, my name is Ira Konstantinou and I'm the program leader for the BA in Psychology.
We've created this short video to give you some real insights into the degree program. I hope you enjoy it. At the end, we'll include some contact details so that you can get in touch with any questions that you have. What is this degree really about?
So this degree is really about getting a professional qualification in psychology. So it is a hybrid degree between the European system and the American system. So you get the core courses that you would get in any psychology degree in the UK or in the US, are actually anywhere in Europe. And then you have many options like you would do in the American system. Then think additionally to that, the liberal arts system affords you courses outside your degree so that you get a more holistic view of general education. So it complements the degree really, really well if you have courses outside your major to support you with research and writing, or to support you with oracy skills, or actually even service learning that is very popular right now in the US and also in Europe.
Wonderful, wonderful. Let's dive a bit deeper into what you'll be studying here. What are some classes or courses that students will be taking?
So usually we look at the courses in different levels across the years. So in the first year, most students will take an introduction to psychological debates and controversies. We'll look at introductory courses in research methods. And then in the second year, you start to specialize in different areas. So you look at biological psychology, you look at developmental psychology. And as you go into the third and the fourth year, then you're studying really in the areas that are core for psychology. Any psychologist should know them, like research methods, personality theory, intelligence, social psychology, but also you have a lot of options that you can start taking, like health psychology, psychoanalysis, existential psychology, or even psychology and cinema, which is one of the favorites among students.
And I can see there's some elective courses for this degree, like psychology and cinema. How do they work and when would I pick them?
So as you enter your third year of studies, or if you have transfer credits, it could be in your second year of study. We have a lot of transfer students in Richmond. You're looking at discussing with your advisor and also with your peers what is the area of expertise that you would like to take in psychology. So for example, many students are looking to go into counseling in psychology or clinical psychology. So they're looking for courses that will align with that, building the knowledge and the skills going into those areas. So for example, the psychology and cinema course that we just mentioned is a very good course in preparing students for clinical psychology, because we look at a lot of clinical concepts and how they are actually portrayed in different films. But also you can look at courses like health psychology, and in that course you would be looking at how patients deal with chronic illness, for example, or how we all dealt with the pandemic and the stress levels that caused and the mental health challenges that posed. And then looking at how that would translate to different skills in the workplace. So those kinds of courses, you choose them according to your interest and according really to what also your peers are saying about what is popular in psychology. So it is really a combination of the two.
Wonderful. And how are these classes assessed?
So most of the classes you will see in psychology are assessed in no traditional assessment. So it's very rare for psychology courses to have an essay that you will need to do. So most courses have an employability element in terms of their assessment. So for example, in health psychology, it's a prime example, it's a junior level course, so you would take it in your third year. And what you will be asked to do would be to produce a patient leaflet. So we pick a topic for you to focus on. It could be, for example, the pandemic and looking at stress levels following the pandemic. And you will need to produce a patient information leaflet, very much like what you will see in a doctor's office. And it is tailored to putting all of the knowledge that you gathered in the course into a very employability focused kind of skill. So a skill that you will be asked to do in the workplace or as a master's student or as a PhD student. So the work that you are producing is really the application of the theory and the research that you have done the whole of the term. In other courses, you will be asked to write experimental reports. For example, in the research methods courses, that's what we are preparing you for, so that you will be able to write a dissertation at the end of the year. But really, what you are preparing for is to be able to do a master's thesis and a PhD thesis, as a lot of the students in psychology do choose to go into graduate studies and to become doctors eventually. So most of the assessment really focuses on employability skills.
Wonderful. All right, now can we discuss internships? When would you take it, and when do you recommend students do one of these?
So usually internships are taken in the summer between the junior year and the senior year, so between the third and the fourth year. So students will have just finished the majority of their level 5 courses, of their junior courses. So they have enough knowledge and skills to be able to apply them in an internship, especially because psychology has very demanding internships. So some examples will be students have been working on research projects, for example, at UCL, the University College London, in the Vision Lab. So students have been before working on studies on patients with schizophrenia and how they perceptually navigate space. So working in the Vision Lab at UCL is very, very challenging. You need to have your research methods down, you need to be able to write reports, you need to be able to analyze data, because they do tend to demand quite a lot of you. So students need to have finished the research methods courses and a lot of the theoretical basis before they're able to do this in the summer. And actually students who have taken those kinds of research internships, they have moved on to be in the same universities for their master's courses. So they really carried on that type of research into their master's. So for example, the Vision Lab interns have then done a senior project with us on the data that they collected in the Vision Lab, and then they applied for a master's at UCL to continue there. And that type of research actually was award-winning. I mean, the Vision Lab at UCL has won the Nobel Prize for the kind of research that they're doing. But other kinds of internships for people who are not interested in research have included working with patients or with children. So many students have worked in schools, especially in schools that cater for special needs, so working with children who have autism. And supporting them, and they typically then go on to work in those areas, especially because students do so well in the internships that they're asked to stay. So we're expecting that when you go off and you do an internship, they will typically ask you to stay. And that is what has happened before. But also students have worked at the Anna Freud Center, and they have looked at psychoanalytic studies, looked after patients, trained under that, and also in the national health system. Those are more difficult to get, those internships. Of course they are, because they're more demanding. But the success rate has been, I would say, 98%. Very few students are not taken by the internships in those places. And that will be because they're not very well prepared yet. So they will need to wait until they're able to go there.
What have students gone on to do after graduating in this program?
Most students actually graduating would have gone on to graduate studies, but that is typical of psychology, that most students will continue with graduate studies to get more qualifications to become doctors in psychology or clinicians. So many students go on to graduate studies at master's level and then PhD level. Typical destinations would be Russell Group in the UK, so that's the equivalent of the Ivy League in the US. So typical destinations would be Sussex University, would be UCL, would be King's. A very big cohort of our students tend to go to King's. It's a very good fit. with the Richmond preparation, and we have like a tradition of students going to King's. But students have gone on to Oxford and Cambridge for typically research methods oriented studies. And then in the US, a lot of students go into Ivy League, so they would go to NYU, Columbia University, especially for educational psychology. There is a line of students in the past who have gone on to do educational psychology at Teachers College at Columbia, which is very highly regarded, and developmental studies. In other countries, when students tend to go back home to study, typically they go into English-speaking universities, but they do tend to continue with masters and PhDs. Those who don't typically find work within marketing, advertising companies, or they would work with doing research as research assistants. And some students have gone on to do masters that don't look like psychology masters, like neuroimaging or neuroscience, because they have the basics of research, and they move on to do those kinds of areas of expertise later.
So is this program accredited by any professional organizations?
Yes. So it's very important for psychology programs to be accredited, because it gives you the quality assurance that the program that you're taking in this university is equivalent to other university programs, but it's also a quality stamp that it is of excellent standard. So the program is accredited by the British Psychological Society, and the accreditation means that we need to deliver core modules that are specific to psychology, but then we are free to give options to students to enhance the degree. But it also means that the BPS, the British Psychological Society, visits often, approves of the labs, approves of the student work, and the delivery of the program. So they do visit and have discussions with us, and the development of the degree depends on those discussions. Importantly though, because we are dual accredited, so because the university works with accreditation also in the US, the program is accredited by PsyCI. So students are have the ability to actually become members of PsyCI. This is the International Honor Society for Psychology. It's the closest thing really that the American Psychological Association will have as an accreditation for an undergraduate degree. They usually accredit only PhD level courses, but students and faculty here are members of PsyCI, and that affords them access to resources in the US, funding in the US, but also working on research projects across the world. So PsyCI invites us to actually participate in cross-disciplinary research and cross-university research. And students in the past, just before the pandemic actually, worked on a project that was international. They collected data for access to health services just before the pandemic. So then that data became very important across different universities across the world, actually, and that data has been have been published. So that work actually happened in the junior year, so in the third year, and then students were able to do their senior project, elaborating on that, on those data that they covered, and they were able to use this data to actually write up their dissertation, which is something that you wouldn't do unless you had access to a cross-disciplinary type of research like that. But I'm sure that you can talk a little bit more about the PsyCI society. So it's very important for students to get involved in the society, and it was a student initiative to look at careers and employment under that. So maybe talking a little bit more about that.
Of course, yeah. So at the moment, I'm the chair of the Careers Committee, and pretty much our initiative is to bring in guest speakers to come in and talk to students, just so we have an idea of what we're doing after graduation. And this past year, We had brought in a forensic psychologist who teaches at the Open University to kind of just talk about what to do in a master's program and how to go forward in academia. And in the future, we're planning on bringing in another forensic psychologist that works more in the applied setting versus the academic setting. That way we have that covered. Like, I'm really big into criminology. I'm planning on going into like behavioral analysis, if you will, in the future. So I think it's very important to have somebody come in and tell us exactly what the job is. That way we're not thinking about one thing and then we regret something and having to redo it later.
Yes. And it's very important to think that forensic psychology wouldn't be taught at undergraduate level, so you wouldn't be taking a course like that. So it's very important for students to actually have a say in what additional extracurricular activities you will be able to do by taking that initiative. And it's really important that under Psych-I you are afforded that kind of leeway and opportunity. And we also looked at, actually just a week ago, we looked at enhancing the curriculum through our partnership with the Chicago School. Marley actually worked on organizing that conference. Besides the skills that you learn from organizing that conference, it was really important to look at how clinical psychology and actually business psychology is taught elsewhere. So we had a faculty member from the Chicago School of Professional Psychology and a PhD student visit us, and they talked about their own research and their own experience and how they bring together their personal experience into their working field. And I thought that was an interesting way for us to be enhancing the curriculum, to do something outside really the classroom and what you normally hear in the classroom.
Absolutely, and it was very informative to hear about the PhD student and his work and how that process goes for him, since a lot of people don't know what's going on until we get there. So it was nice to hear somebody tell us exactly what's going to happen.
Yes. And it was very interesting to see how many synergies you have between what you're actually doing right now and what the PhD student is doing for his research. So it's really interesting to see how all of your hard work right now leads up to becoming a doctor in psychology.
Yeah.
So we talked a lot about the program. What is it that you like about this program? So what is it that actually attracted you to it in the first place, and why did you stay?
So the main attraction for me was that I've always wanted to live in London. It was like a childhood dream of mine, and I watched a lot of Doctor Who growing up, and I wanted to see if it was real. And when I got here, it was just a very welcoming environment from you and the other professors, and it just felt like a place that I could actually flourish into what I wanted to do. And I've really enjoyed how students are allowed to get involved outside of the classroom. So like, we have talked about your research and me helping you in the future with that. And just being able to look at how what we're learning in class actually applies to experiments that are being done out in the real world. And through this, I've met some alumni and such who have then put me in contact with extra people, and so I've gone to some extra workshops that I wouldn't have been able to go to if I hadn't been in touch with people who went to this school. So that's been a really big factor in why I wanted to stay once we started.
I think it's really important that students continue to work together with the faculty. I mean, Richmond is a place that is smaller in comparison to bigger universities in the UK, and I think the smaller place affords you these kinds of opportunities. We love working with students, we want to work with students, we do not try to avoid you, and any opportunity that we have to actually enhance the program together is really important. So that ethos of having the students as partners is really important to Richmond, not just in the psychology department, but overall in the university. And that's why I'm here. I'm enjoying this a lot more compared to when I was at a bigger university.
Yes, and it's really important to us that we get to know you and we have time to sit down with you and each of the other professors to talk through things and to get to know you and your research, and just like, you've been very influential on what I've been wanting to study. So it's just being able to have that relationship here is very different and very good.
Yeah, and it is very important for the development of the students, but also of the faculty. And we really enjoy it, so that's a good thing.
We do too. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you'd like to contact us, there will be some information on the screen.